Okay, let's get started. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the first in the series of our marketing automation webinars. Today, we're going to be discussing the fundamentals of marketing automation and what you should be considering when adopting automation for the first time or using your current automation platform. We've got registrants and attendees from all over the world, so really appreciate you making the time to join us today. I'll start by introducing those who are with us today. So firstly, we have Adrian Jones. He's the CEO and co-founder of Marketing Cube. For those of you who don't know us, we're a connected capability agency based out of Sydney, Australia. We're an Oracle partner focused in marketing, customer experience, and automation.
Good morning, everybody.
We also have Jay Mahoney with us. He's a Senior Director of CX Solutions of Oracle. Jay supports organizations across Australia and New Zealand in creating business advantages using data and technology. He's currently working from home, as many of us are, given the current situation, but extra props to Jay, who's currently looking after a 1-year-old during this webinar. So if you hear any crying or keyboard bashing, don't worry. It's not Jay losing his mind. So welcome, Jay.
Cheers, Matt. Yeah, it's definitely not the child. I promise you that.
Cheers, Jay. And I'm Matt Hemsley, so I'm the marketing manager at Marketing Cube. I'm in the Oracle Eloqua automation platform on a daily basis, both creating campaigns for Marketing Cube and providing some consulting and support to some of our clients. So this is what we're covering today. First, we're going to look at the experience economy, discussing the shift in power from brand to consumers. We're also going to look at what is marketing automation, what the components are and what it's not. And then for automation in action, we're going to show you how automation was actually used as part of this webinar campaign and how organizations in Australia are getting amazing results using automation. Then for key considerations for your marketing automation, we're going to look at strategy, tech, data, and processes. So I'll now hand over to Jay, who's going to discuss the experience economy. So over to you, Jay. Hear some crying in the background.
Thanks. There is, yes. So I'll try to be as informative and as brief as I can, and hopefully it won't get too loud. Good morning, all. I hope you're all working in a safe environment. So yeah, so the experience economy, and why is this important? Well, the experience economy has evolved because of the traditional buyer model has changed, and we're now very much in a buyer's market. This disruption is occurring because of the technology and the innovation and evolution that's now coming to the forefront. And this disruption means we've seen a shift in power from the brands to the consumer. This is not only happening in the B2C ecosystem, but it's also happening in B2B, as this technology evolution is applicable to both environments. And so what this means is that brand loyalty is actually being replaced by consumer expectation. And today, the experience a brand or a business provides is now considered as important as the actual product or the service that you're delivering. And what's really interesting is because of this, organizations are now aligning investments, processes, and structures around the idea of trading not only in product or service, but experience of their customer and consumer. So obviously that comes to the second part of this. How can the data help, and what is the role of the data? Data is the root issue in providing the kinds of experiences that consumers demand, to the point that your business's relationship with your consumers and customers is very heavily dependent on understanding their unique journey. And as a marketer, it's crucial that we have access to and can utilize this data to create the personalized customer experience in today's economy that's demanded of us. So effectively what we're saying is, if you can connect all your data, you can create a connected intelligence, and on the back of that, you can create a connected experience to each individual. So you can provide that connected, personalized experience to help drive engagement and action from your brand. So that's the theory, and it sounds pretty simple, right? Well, now what we need to consider, and what I'm going to do now is hand over to Matt and Adrian to talk a little bit more about how we can execute on this, as I know they've got some fantastic guideline suggestions in place.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jay. Now, Adrian is now going to share what the elements and benefits of automation are. So Adrian, over to you.
Right, thanks Matt, thanks Jay. So it falls to me to really talk about what marketing automation really is and what it is not. So just want to really kind of start to explore this. guess the first question is, for me, at a very high level, is why are you doing it? Or why are you thinking about changing what you're doing? For some people, a lot of clients that we talk to, a lot of prospects that we talk to, it's about being able to transform a customer experience. It's about delivering better campaign outcomes by delivering more personalized marketing messages. For others, that age-old challenge that people have is aligning sales and marketing or aligning service and marketing. So putting those two things together, we know we're going to deliver better sales outcomes. I was at another event that we had down in Melbourne last week, and it came up again, just that kind of classic age-old, how do we align sales and service better, and how do we use marketing automation to do that? Another is improving marketing effectiveness. So, marketing budgets aren't getting bigger and bigger. If they are, then resources aren't necessarily always being applied. So can we use marketing automation to do more with less? Can we process a lot more? Can we deliver a lot more campaigns? Can we leverage our resources to be smarter about the way that we do marketing? And sometimes it's about changing the way that we're delivering our marketing. So is it that we want to move more of it in-house? Is it that we want to create a center of excellence and lift kind of the marketing that we're doing and have other organizations or other parts of the organization use it? Or is it that we want to devolve that marketing and give other people control and able to kind of get into the platform and do what they want? And my final thing, when you're thinking about it is it about improving ROI and reporting? Is it about understanding what's working and what's not? So there, some of the things that you might be thinking about when considering marketing automation and where you are today and where you'd like to be. We did a blog post back on the 21st of April, 2015. And it's still one of our most visited pages. In there, he said that technology is helpful when it can take something complex and make it simple. And I think that really helps to kind of steer this a little bit. Diving a little bit further into what is automation. So the first thing is it's about that personalized customer experience. And when we're thinking about that, I'm thinking really about emails and landing pages and SMSs, but looking at field level personalization. So simple stuff like getting a first name or a customer name in there and not dear valued customer, but then moving on to things like cadence and sort of how frequently do people want to be communicated to, and changing that depending on where they are in their customer journey, or preferences. And we're seeing customer preferences move more and more forward in the customer journey. And people asking kind of upfront, what would you like your relationship with our business to be like? And what are you interested in? And how can we service or help to service that and give you what you'd really like to hear about, rather than kind of taking the guesswork out of things. Being able to build trigger-based multi-step campaigns. There are so many organizations that I know that have capability to build marketing automation programs, but still don't build multi-step campaigns. They still are delivering one email at a time. And so it's what's stopping that. And sometimes it's just how easy it is to do. Sometimes it's planning, but really that ability means that you can start to do that more with less and automate the whole process. So we'll go in and have a little bit more of a look at how Eloqua does that a bit later in this webinar. Thinking about segmentation. So I think one of the primary shifts from kind of an email marketing or to a kind of a traditional approach to a marketing automation approach is to move from list thinking to segmentation thinking. And so one of those things is then, rather than creating a list and thinking about a list, you're thinking about a segment. And one component is to think about segments that are kind of always on. So when a group of people meet a certain criteria, they'll be automatically added to this segment. And from that, we can decide what we want to do with them next. So an example might be anyone who's a new customer might be added to the onboarding campaign, or anybody that has just joined the user group might be put into our nurturing campaign. So there's lots of different kind of criteria that you might set, but this kind of list management and uploading lists is very difficult, and taking people out of lists and adding them. So it's just really moving away from that to kind of a smarter form of segmentation. The other thing that you can add, which adds another whole layer of richness, is around engagement. So segmenting not only based on profile and what they've done or who they are or the status, but also to the way that they're behaving. So if they haven't opened an email for the last 3 emails, then maybe they don't want the 4th one, and sort of thinking about that type of thing. So moving on from there, we can talk about smart forms and really doing that a bit more cleverly. So smart forms enable you to do things like progressive profiling. And I really like the concept of single click registration. So just using what you know to reduce the number of fields that you have to have in a form. And then smart content, which is dynamic content and the ability to change that content based on rules that you may have. So I guess what it's not is batch and blast, kind of focused on email only, and then broad messaging out to the whole of your, kind of the whole of your database, or to broad segments at a time. So looking at the components of marketing automation, I've split it into sort of a couple of basic elements. So one is the front end. And I think, and dividing this up, we've got campaign planning. So within Eloqua, we'll see this in a little bit as well. You've got this campaign canvas and the ability to plan out the steps that you have in your campaign. So through from a segment to the various different elements, as well as workflow, that workflow, and then some decision rules that you can put around there to decide what happens next. And that can also then lead from one campaign to another campaign. So you can join those two canvases together. The next element is really assets, and that's emails, SMS, landing pages, and forms. So they're all different elements. Matt, I'm going to throw it to you, and I'm going to take this call.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay. So then on the back end, there's three elements that we split this out into. Integration being the first part. So that's integration with your automation platform with, firstly, your CRM. So you've got profile data feeding back and forth between the two, but then also integration with other platforms, tools, whether it's customer data platform, data management platforms, could be paid social media platforms, anything like that. So obviously it's really important for your data integrity and quality to have the correct integration set up. And then data management. So data cleanliness and quality is one of the sort of challenges or issues we see clients having when they first come to us. So if you've not got data being clean, then it's very hard to target the right people at the right time.
Awesome.
You've got it back?
Okay. Thanks, man. I'm back.
No
I'm
worries.
back. Phone answered. So yeah, so I think the software as a service was really, it's often taken for granted now, but it is fundamentally what enables us to innovate so quickly, or enables Oracle to innovate so quickly on the Eloqua platform, and also provide all that security and everything else that you need and access from anywhere. So kind of all those kind of fundamental pieces are built in. So let's go and have a look, I guess, just recap a little bit on the benefits of automation. So one of them is that improved lead and customer digital communication. So that is the ability to really transform that customer experience through that personalization. And that personalization is, not only kind of rich HTML and kind of landing pages and that editor, but also reducing costs and time to market that it takes for a campaign. That ability to really align marketing and sales tools that really help you to do that. And that, the integration that you can do between the marketing platform and your CRM, this enables everybody to know, your sales organization to understand what is happening, what marketing are doing, and for them to see what a contact has actually looked at or opened, clicked through on, or the forms that they've submitted, and really make the best decision around what their next conversation should be. Conversely, if sales are updating something like an opportunity or a lead status or stage or closed, lost reason, all of those things can play back into your customer journey information and your contact information, and enable you to be much more accurate and timely around the kinds of marketing that you're doing. So all those things help from sales, but you've also got engagement insights coming from your web pages, from your website, from your landing pages, from what the emails that people are opening and what they're clicking through on, and the forms they're submitting. So all those engagement insights also help you to put together a much better idea of what people might want. And then the preference center can tell you explicitly what they're looking for as well. So the combination of those things really gives you a rich amount of information that you can use for your marketing strategy. And finally, that closed loop reporting, whether that's picking up the revenue and opportunity information from your CRM, or understanding what your campaigns are doing but just really closing the loop on what's working and what's not. And that's for two things, really. It's the ROI on the campaign, but also when you're testing and working out things that you'd like to improve, understanding which elements are making a difference, and then getting that incremental improvement campaign on campaign to drive a better outcome, so that it's not really, it's less set and forget. It's kind of set and then improve and incrementally improve on that campaign. So you're delivering, better and better results each time you run that type of campaign. So just some thoughts then for when you might consider moving to automation or changing kinds of automation. So I think one thing is just around that digital transformation, whether that's sort of your business or whether it's delivery or internally within the business. But if you're driving digital transformation, that's important to your business, then that's a good time to consider, whether the platform that you have is delivering what you want. Are you able to get to where you want to be? And do you have the kind of support that you need to deliver that digital transformation? If you're scaling, so there's all sorts of different reasons for why you might be scaling your marketing communications. But again, that's another good reason to have a look and go, okay, we're moving from A to B. Does the technology support what we're doing? And do our processes support what we're doing? Could we use marketing automation to help with that? So, under the circumstances that we have today, we've got a lot of our clients going, okay, we need to move a lot of our physical events to being online events. How can we use marketing automation platform to do that more effectively, to drive the communications through and to help us get the attendance and achieve the objectives of that event in the first place? How can we do that online, and how can we use marketing automation to help? Increasing marketing efficiencies and processes is just, as it says, it's just really just about how can we do more with less, or use the same resources to produce a lot more. A lot of organizations that we work with have one or two marketers. The amount that they are able to produce and put together from a marketing perspective is amazing, and you wouldn't be able to do it without automation to support that. And finally, that good old chestnut of sales and marketing alignment, and trying to get those two parts of the organization really humming. And I say sales, but it also means service, so that you're just delivering a better overarching experience across both areas. Great. So I'm going to hand back to Matt, I think, at this point.
Right, thanks a lot for that, Adrian. So we thought you would get some value from seeing how automation was used specifically for this webinar campaign. So this campaign was built in the Oracle Eloqua automation platform using its campaign canvas. And the campaign canvas sort of acts as the brain of your whole marketing automation. It's an area where you bring all of your data and assets together to plan the journey that you want your contacts to have. So let's start by looking at targeting and data sources used. So for this webinar campaign, existing contacts were separated into segments using integration between Eloqua and our CRM. So here I looked at profile data like account type, location, your current automation platform, and then overlaid engagement data on top of that, things like landing page visits, form submissions, and email clicks. So in the end, came up with two main audiences. We had registrants from last year's series, webinar series that we ran throughout 2019, and also prospects. And these were prospects that were either recent or new, engaged in some way, or their current automation platform is an Eloqua. And then on top of this, contacts were dynamically added to the segment. So if a contact met a certain segmentation criteria after the campaign was activated, they were pulled through automatically onto the campaign canvas. And then obviously we also had new contacts coming into the campaign. So some new leads were generated organically via social media or through our website, but the majority were automatically pulled directly into Eloqua and onto the campaign canvas via a LinkedIn ads integration. So contacts that registered via a lead gen form on a LinkedIn ad were automatically sent all of the details they needed for this webinar, automatically added to the CRM via integration, and also added to our top of funnel lead nurture campaign. So for personalization, let's look at how the campaign was personalized and targeted to each contact on a one-to-one basis. So campaign assets were personalized using something called dynamic content. And this is customer specific content that changes depending on who is viewing it. So dynamic content makes your campaign assets like landing pages and emails more flexible by adapting them to the relevant contact information tied to the recipient. So it's essentially the same email, but the content changes automatically. So using the example of the email invitations for this webinar campaign that were sent to existing contacts, we created dynamic content based on various criteria, including industry, seniority, location, and whether you're an Eloqua user versus not an Eloqua user. So for industry, we created 7 variants of the introductory copy related to the 7 most common industries of our target segments. So we tried to create copy that connected with the challenges and pain points of marketers in that industry in a certain way. And really, this is quite subtle personalization, but it can have quite a big impact. For seniority, we created 2 copy variations when focusing on the webinar agenda copy within the email. And this varied depending on whether you're a director or CMO type level, or whether you're a manager, mid-level. So for managers, we wanted to highlight how the webinar will showcase that automation can have an impact on building your campaigns and improving your conversions. But for the CMO level, we highlighted the transformative effect on the business and overall marketing ROI. Then for location, this was quite an easy one. We displayed different webinar start times depending on the time zone you're in. So this was also the case for other assets in the campaigns, like the registration page and confirmation thank you pages. And we had for this 10 different time zones and variations in total. Finally, we displayed a different email footer depending on whether you're an Eloqua user or not an Eloqua user. So if you are not an Eloqua user, we showed you this image and pointed you to our more general marketing automation content on our blog. However, if you are an Eloqua user, we showed you this image and pointed you in the direction of our monthly online Eloqua user groups. So quite subtle, but impactful change. So from these 4 pieces of dynamic content in one email, it actually results in thousands of different permutations. So the communications you would have received, as an example, if you're a mid-level marketer in the UK in the education industry who uses Eloqua, this would have been very different from someone who is perhaps a CMO in professional services in Hong Kong who doesn't use Eloqua. So next, looking at data capture. So simple but quite cool UX tactic to improve form conversion rates was using conditional fields. This is where another field is displayed depending on answers to previous questions. So for example, if somebody selected that they were located in Australia in the country field, another form field would appear asking which state. And progressive profiling, the next point there, is an automation tactic used to collect an increasing amount of profile data of each contact over time to build a more complete picture of them. It works by displaying questions that hadn't previously been answered by the contact. So in our webinar campaign, we included 3 progressive profiling questions, which were what city you're in, what's your job title, or what CRM do you use? So if we already knew what city you're in, we might ask what your job title is, right? And you can display as many or as few progressive profiling questions as you like from a list that you create. Then looking at form processing, this is what happens on the back end of the form when someone submits it. The processing controls lots of clever stuff, but one thing we did here was send an email notification to sales reps if a registrant assigned to them registered for the webinar. So in terms of some of the cool automation going on in the campaign, contacts received different email communications and at different times depending on how they engaged with previous comms. So if someone didn't open the first email invitation, we would just send a second one with a different subject line to try and entice them into opening this time. However, if they did open the first invitation but didn't register, we send them another one with different email content and increased personalization to try to perhaps touch another challenge or pain point that they might be experiencing to try and get them to register this time. And then all the reminder emails and SMS messages that you will have received to join today, if you opted in to receive them, obviously, these were all set up and automated weeks ago using Eloqua's campaign canvas. So we use Zoom as our webinar provider, and using an integration with Eloqua, we can automate communications in the post-webinar campaign to registrants depending on whether they attended or not and how they engaged in the webinar. Finally, this whole campaign and the subsequent webinars in this series and all associated assets were set up by one marketer in just a couple of days using no HTML. And the final result of all this is a personalized content for each contact and a dynamic journey depending on how the individual contact engaged. So hopefully that's given you a high-level view of how you can create and deploy an automated marketing campaign. So Adrian now will share how some other organizations are using automation to improve their marketing ROI and customer experience. So over to you, Adrian. I'll just hand you control again.
So yes, just want to go through a couple of quick case studies. I know that we're running a little bit behind time, but basically, yeah, I want to go through one. So one is a client of ours, NIB Health. They basically were working through this process of had these challenges around, first off, email addresses not being captured early on in the process. So how could they do something about that? All leads were pretty much treated the same. And then there were not the processes for customer acquisition and nurture pretty disparate. The other thing was the whole thing was really dependent upon IT, and IT were kind of running the whole of that process. What they did was implemented Eloqua. It was about a 6-week implementation. It all happened pretty quickly. And we moved basically and enabled customer quotes to be delivered online. And what that did was that really helped them to collect a lot more information more quickly, and it helped us to use that information in a way much more effectively. One of the ways that we did that was to help them to build a lead scoring and lead nurturing model and tie it in with a lifetime value. So effectively, the leads that they were most important could get responded to quickly, and they could feed that information through. It ended up, we actually ended up integrating it with a dialer. And that way, even people that were sitting in the queue, we could use lead scoring to get those leads and get their calls answered more quickly. So the better their engagement and the better their kind of lifetime value, the more we knew about them, the more quickly they would get a response. And then also, we delivered, we got some pretty good results through the course of that campaign as well. We're going to, around that initiative, that project, I'm going to share this case study with you. But as you can see, we got a really strong ROI. The emails and communications got a very high click-through rate. And the campaign time to market was pretty quick in terms of the overall project. And we were able to make those changes. And a lot of that was driven outside of IT and driven from within marketing. So that's one example. And the next one I was going to talk through just quickly with you was another company of ours that actually runs events. It's a company called Eventage. They have this challenge where they run up to 70 events at a time, all these events at the same time. And their business is aligned to each of those different types of events. So they might do women in leadership and all sorts of different types of events. And they have speakers, sponsors, and delegates that are all trying to organize around each of those events. One of the key challenges is around how do they set up a score or understand a delegate's engagement based on that event. So they developed essentially a event-centric lead score, which meant that they then needed to have 70 live lead scores at any point in time. And every time they ran an event, they needed a new lead score. And the current process that they had meant that would take a long time. There were a lot of rules, about 60 steps required to develop their kind of old lead score. By moving that over to a more sophisticated lead score model, we're able to essentially create a template, make that a lot quicker, a lot easier, and score all of the assets, folders, all of the content, all of that engagement from those contacts to a particular event, and let salespeople know who is really engaged and interested on a particular event. And since they've implemented this, they also are able to devolve or spread that marketing structure kind of with a bit of Eloqua support to enable more people to actually do their own marketing rather than having to have this such complex structure that couldn't be done. So the results were that they managed to simplify that event management and the setup. They improved the results. Even the email deliverability alone was driving a lot better results. that sales and marketing alignment I was talking about earlier was something that they really wanted to get out of this. That also was driven through this process. And now they're in this mode where they're kind of incrementally improving the way that they're doing scoring to better target and to be able to provide better communication to their delegates particularly, but also to speakers and sponsors.
All right, thanks for that, Adrian. Cheers. The last thing we'd like to touch on you today in the last 5 minutes of this webinar is important things to consider when adopting or optimizing your automation. So with your customer at the center of all this, Adrian, would you like to start by talking about how strategy fits into everything?
Yeah, sure. I just think we couldn't really go through a marketing automation fundamentals webinar without touching on strategy. And I think for me, this is just about how do you get a clear line of sight between your marketing strategy and your marketing automation strategy and what you're going to be doing with a platform and how it's going to help you to achieve that strategy. So I think that's just a key consideration is to map those two things together and understand that. And as it comes back a little bit to the why, kind of the why you're doing it, what's the purpose and the outcomes, but also just understanding, I think we had that initial poll, we're talking about that marketing automation maturity. So yes, we want to move up that marketing automation maturity curve, do things that are, that deliver better customer experiences, that are more sophisticated, deliver better outcomes. But what are we really trying to drive? Is there a revenue outcome? Is it a sales outcome? Is it an improvement in service and SLAs? Is it taking less calls out of the call center and being able to answer them directly? And if I think we can get to those criteria, then we can really build a marketing automation strategy that supports that overarching marketing strategy. So I think that way we stop thinking so much about the technology and a little bit more on what we're going to use that technology to deliver. Then you can come back and go, okay, how does this platform, how does this technology help me achieve that marketing automation strategy?
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Adrian. And Jay, would you like to speak to how tech and data are important as a part of your marketing automation?
Yeah, definitely. And look, the wee man's asleep now, so you shouldn't hear too much crying in the background. I'm being on mute for the most part of this. Apologies all. But yeah, so I mean, with technology, it's sort of, I mean, the whole basis of what we've been talking about here. Do you have the right technology to assist in this personalization experience that we're going for? So, are you using the right automation? And Adrian's spoken at length about making sure you have the right technology for the right purpose, especially considering the climate that we're in now. That level of personalization that you're able to offer each individual through the course of their engagement with you is key. And then that ties into the next bit with the data. Do you have that data available to you so that you can use the technology in the way that you need to have it? A lot of people that we talk to, they do have that siloed data. And it's not till we start to engage them and show them the art of the possible that we can start to break down those barriers. So the data and the technology sort of sit hand in hand. Do I have the right technology to do that personalization at scale? And it's not just that batch and blast, that's the common purpose, but it's that multi-channel messaging. And then do I have the data that I can maximize that and remove those silos? So that's the two components that I think you need to consider once you've worked out that strategy, Matt.
Cool, thanks, Jay. And finally, Adrian, what do you need in your organization in terms of skills and processes in place to make this adoption successful? And how can you measure and show ROI?
Yeah, so on the skills and processes, I think we touched a little bit on that marketing, kind of on your model, on your marketing model. And I think it's really about making sure that you do have those skills and processes, but you have got the option of either building those skills internally, leveraging external skills and consultants and partners like ourselves to help you get those skills internally, or have some sort of hybrid model where you're delivering that. I think it's an important part of kind of making the most of your marketing automation platform is investing in those skills to make sure that you're making the most of the platform that you have. So, and making sure that you've got this change management happening, not just the BAU. So, one of those kind of favorite expressions is, you can automate something, but all that's happening is you're going to just fail. You're going to fail faster. You're automating what you've got. So nothing's going to change. You're just going to deliver it more quickly. So it's just looking at how do you make that change on top. And I think that does come through that enablement, that coaching, or outsourcing, the more complex process that you can bring them in-house and run those types of campaigns internally. And the last point is the ROI, and the question is, what does that mean to you? What is that return on investment, and where is it coming from? And tying that back, full circle to your strategy, it's just making sure that you're supporting your business case, your original business case, and your outcomes, and what you're trying to achieve this year is aligned with that strategy, and you're getting that return from your platform, and delivering against that.
Just to wrap things up, some things I wanted to let you know about before we head off. The NIB example that Adrian spoke about, we've also got a downloadable case study PDF that goes into a bit more detail on top of what Adrian shared. And finally, we also have a short assessment at Marketing Cube called the Design for Automation Assessment that helps you identify your marketing automation maturity level, including strengths and gaps, right? So it only takes a couple of minutes to complete, and we'll give you scores and a recommendation for improvements. So I'll pop links to all of these in the chat function in just a second. We'll also share these as well as the webinar recording in the post-campaign communications. I'll just have to edit the recording video first, which unfortunately is one of the few things we can't automate. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. Thanks to Adrian and Jay for joining and presenting as well. And of course, reach out to any of us if you would like to have a discussion about using or improving your marketing automation at your organization. So take care, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.